Welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter podcast, your number one source of all things bodybuilding. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on future episodes. Now, here's your host, Leroy Rollins.
All right, people, welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter podcast. I'm here, as you guys can see, with Cliff Wilson. Super stoked that we were finally able to set this up. So give people a quick rundown. I'm sure all the listeners know who you are by now, but introduce yourself, my man.
Yeah. First off, I appreciate you having me on here. For those that don't know who I am, I've been I'm starting to feel a little bit like the old man of the bodybuilding community. I've been coaching full time, just bodybuilders.
Oh, I lost the sound. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. I lost you.
You there?
Yeah.
Okay, lost you. All right. So for those that don't know me, I've been coaching full time for about 10 years now. And just with bodybuilders. It was at the time, like, there was no Instagram, Facebook was much newer.
Yeah.
Not really many people were doing this, so I didn't really know if I could make it as a living. I was just kind of feeling out what I could do as a job, as a profession here. And I've been fortunate to work with some really great athletes over the years, and I've had somewhere over 100 clients turn pro in bodybuilding.
Wow.
As well as some natural bodybuilding world champs. So yeah, I've been very, very fortunate to have the career that I've had.
For sure. What kind of drew you to coach natural bodybuilders? Was it you just enjoyed the natural side of things, or what?
Well, I guess I should stipulate I work with both natural and enhanced bodybuilders.
Yep.
But I work with more natural bodybuilders, probably anywhere between 75 and 80% natural bodybuilders.
Yep.
The main reason, one, I am natural myself, and at least for myself, the reason I wanted to remain natural is I liked the longer game of it. Generally natural bodybuilders have a longer time period to hit their best. Most natural bodybuilders don't hit their peak until around 40 years old.
It's so cool.
Personally, and it's funny because that's the thing that drives a lot of people crazy, is how long the patience part of it. Sorry, I'm going to adjust my setup here.
No worries.
The patience part of it. But for me, I really enjoy that aspect that it takes quite a while.
Yep.
It was just something that drew me to it. But for myself, that's not something, for me at least, the enhanced side isn't anything that I've ever had any problem with, so to speak.
Yep. What outside of obviously the enhancements, what's kind of the biggest difference you see between natural and enhanced athletes when it comes to coaching?
I would say the speed of everything.
Yeah.
The speed, obviously you're going to progress faster if you're enhanced. All right, got to set up there. All right, so you're going to progress a lot faster if you're enhanced. Natural bodybuilding is just a painfully slow game that we're playing here.
Yep.
Natural bodybuilders, I mean, once you get past the first, 5-6 years, maybe 7 years of training, you're probably looking at a half a pound to 2 pounds per year of muscle growth.
Yeah.
And 2 pounds is incredibly generous.
Yeah.
And whereas enhanced bodybuilders, you could be looking at, once again, beyond the first 7 years or so, you could still be looking at, 4 pounds, 5 pounds here and there. And it's funny because to a lot of newbies out there, they hear 5 pounds and they're like, that doesn't seem like a lot of muscle. And, anybody, even enhanced bodybuilders, 5 pounds of pure muscle tissue is a hell of a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So that, and then also when I say the speed of things, even cutting down, natural bodybuilders, we have to worry a lot about muscle loss. So, the rate at which I bring my natural clients down and myself is a lot slower than with the enhanced bodybuilders because they don't need to worry about muscle loss during contest prep the way that natural bodybuilders do.
Yeah, for sure. What about on show day? Are there any kind of big differences when it comes to preparing the Friday, Saturday?
Yeah, so there are actually some significant differences with peak week in general. Because like, have you ever heard the phrase, regarding peak week that it's better to be flat than spilled?
Yep.
Um, in enhanced bodybuilding, I'm not so certain that's necessarily the case,
Okay.
assuming someone is lean enough.
Yep.
Because in natural bodybuilding, as a judging difference, conditioning is a lot more highly valued in natural bodybuilding, whereas size is a little more highly valued. So, you know, sometimes when I say spilled, I mean just like a little bit spilled.
Yeah.
But like, it's better to be a little bit more aggressive in the enhanced side, because that, especially if you're working with a particularly large or muscular bodybuilder, um, you want to make sure that you don't leave them flat, because also in enhanced bodybuilding, flat can look really, really bad because you're not going to be nearly as sharp either if you're not filled out all the way. That muscle tissue, when we consume carbohydrates and we fill up the muscle tissue, it kind of pushes out against the skin and creates like a tight look. But if you're working with somebody that's really, really large and has a lot of filling out to do, that is much more pronounced. So if you're flat, you're really not going to have a very tight look because it's not pushing out against the skin.
Yep, for sure. I think it's crazy. Like when you think of like big natural guys, buck 80, buck 90, maybe 200, shredded is a big natural bodybuilder. But on the enhanced side, like add 100 pounds of more likely like tissue, which is crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some of the biggest naturals I've ever worked with. I mean, the biggest natural bodybuilder I've ever worked with would have to probably be Doug Miller.
Yep.
And Doug's, I want to say maybe 5'9", 5'10", something like that. And, stage weight, depleted like 192 pounds, carved up closer to 200.
Wow.
But the biggest enhanced bodybuilder I've ever worked with, that would be, he'd probably be somewhere around, I think he was around like 262 on stage. And I think it's around the same height, actually, like 5'9", 5'10". So
That's crazy.
yeah. And I had him consume, I want to say somewhere around 2,100 grams of carbohydrates on his rapid backload. So the day before he consumed, around 2,100.
So what does that consist of? So obviously, like, you're kind of famous for the rapid backload. So if someone's consuming 2,000 grams of carbs, like, what is that? That seems like such a lot of food.
Yeah, it was a lot more than I had anticipated, to be honest with you. He also has a very fast metabolic, metabolism. So oftentimes I like to set a cap. Like, if I know somebody has a really fast metabolism, I tend to not like the rapid backload for a peak week for them, just because the digestive issues, like trying to make sure everything is digesting fast enough, assimilating fast enough.
Yep.
Sometimes it's just not worth it. Like, for one thing I've noticed is that for a natural bodybuilder, if they start needing 1,400 grams of carbohydrates, it's not my favorite peak week method.
Right.
Just because, like, I don't want to have to put that much food into them.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a short window. So with my other client, I was a little hesitant to use the rapid backload for him because I knew he was going to need so much, but he was like, I really want to give this a go. And so, he really wanted to give it a go. We'd worked together for a few years. I knew his body really well. So we gave it a go. And I estimated we would need like 1,700 to 1,800.
Yep.
And as we were filling him up, I'm like, man, we're really needing more here. So we just kept filling him up. We used a lot of Gatorade.
Yep.
We used a lot of, we also used Cheerios.
Yep.
I find that, when competitors are traveling and it's a dry, I have them eat it dry because also it's just real convenient. They can bag it up and just,
Yep.
measure it out.
Yeah.
Eat it. So that's really convenient. I also use sweet potatoes, or potatoes in general, for the potassium, because as I'm loading someone up, I really kind of have to pay attention to the potassium to sodium ratio.
Yep.
I don't want potassium getting too high, but if sodium outpaces it too greatly, then you'll actually see some blurring effects.
Right.
So I did it mostly with those foods, but also I included rice cakes, things that are really easily digestible. So it's kind of funny that you asked that too, is because now I when I'm doing rapid backloads, for the last let's say 7 years now, I'm really aware of digestibility as I'm feeding someone. But the first time I ever did it, like attempted it, I was more focused on what is the upper limit of carbohydrates, and I was trying to go with slower digesting foods to a degree, because it allowed me to sort of like pace things out a little bit. And I remember that the first food that I used, one of them was oatmeal.
Yep.
And I remember that some of my clients were like dying. They're like, Cliff, you've got to get this oatmeal out of here because it is just killing us here.
Yep.
No, so I switched over from the oatmeal. From the oatmeal, I switched to then the Cheerios, and that was a pretty good replacement. That felt a lot better on everyone's digestive systems.
For sure. That'd be just handier too, right? Like if you're traveling for a show, no one's going to eat a bag of raw oats versus a bag of Cheerios or something, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have like a time frame, like a feeding window if you're going to do like this rapid intake of carbohydrates? Is it like, okay, for the next 12 hours, the next 8 hours, or is it just very, very different?
Sorry, can you repeat that? You cut out on me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry.
So if someone's going to consume like such a huge amount of carbohydrates, do you have like a feeding window that you're trying to do that in, or is it very individual?
No, I try to get it in within, let's say, about 32 to 36 hours pre-stage time.
Okay.
So it'll vary depending on how large it is. The larger intake that people need, the more spread out I'm going to need to make it.
Right.
Because, obviously, once again, digestive system it's not like I sometimes people are like, I just consume, these carbohydrates, and within an hour they're going to be in my muscle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm like, that's not the way it works.
No. Is there a certain amount of water as well, like a ratio to carb water ratio you use at all?
With water, I try to just keep it high.
Okay.
So, one thing I always say is when it comes to peak week, everybody seems to fear water. And an analogy that I've gotten to use over time is it's not really the water that causes the issue. Because if you're consuming water, we're drinking water all day, every day, but we're just urinating out the excess.
Yeah.
And so our bodies are a little bit like like a bathtub with the water on and the drain open.
Okay.
When you turn on the water, the water that flows through the drain, it like it does in our bodies.
Yep.
But the thing that happens is if I start throwing sponges into that tub, the water will stick to it.
Right.
And the sponges being carbohydrates. And, our goal should be to fill that tub up flat all the way across. And so, the water will stick to it. We want that water inside our muscle tissue. When we run into problems, though, is when we throw too many sponges into the tub.
Gotcha.
And the water will start to breach the top and it'll spill over, just like with our, muscle tissue. So the problem wasn't, if I throw too many sponges into the tub and we say, oh, it was the damn water, it wasn't really the water. If we had stopped throwing sponges in the tub at the appropriate amount of time, we wouldn't have had that spilling problem.
Yep. Yeah, like I remember when I first got into competing, it was normal still, locally anyways, to cut water out. And I couldn't get a pump to save my life. I felt terrible. It was awful. And even just I think it was like 4 or 5 months later, I'd done another show and we just didn't cut water out. And the look within that time was night and day difference just from having water versus not.
Yeah, it really is. So I generally keep it high. If I'm rapid backloading a female bodybuilder, probably somewhere around 2 gallons. Or rapid backloading a male bodybuilder, somewhere around 2.5 to 3 gallons, depending on how big they are.
Yep.
And so, it's probably even a little bit more than is needed, but once again, they'll just urinate out the excess, assuming the intake has been in that ballpark. So I will increase intake about a week out to around those numbers.
Sure.
But I don't jump from having them consume 1 gallon immediately to having them consume 3 gallons.
Yep.
Because when I say that our bodies are like a tub with the drain open, that's in a normal state. And so, our bodies will adjust our hormone levels to release more or less water. So you can't just drastically adjust water levels and expect that your body will keep up with it instantly.
Yep, for sure. If someone... Go ahead.
That little disclaimer on there before somebody starts trying to say, well, Cliff said I can have 5 gallons of water and everything's going to be totally fine.
Yeah. If someone does start to spill, so say for 3 days you're going to do a load and you start to notice they're spilling, do you just pull back a little bit?
Yeah. So spilling is something that I avoid like the plague in general. Particularly for natural bodybuilders. So I haven't had many spilling instances in my career. I'm really, really careful about it. So even when I do, I guess I would say, hit someone's upper limit, it's not usually the first time I've ever peaked them.
Gotcha.
So if I've ever hit someone's upper limit and I see they're starting to blur a little bit, probably from too many carbohydrates, then it's usually such a small amount because I've probably peaked them 1 to 3 times beforehand, and I've been slowly upping the carbohydrates each time. So if I start seeing that happening, it's such a small amount, I can pull it back. Gotcha. But you're right. If somebody starts to spill over, you got to stop eating carbohydrates entirely.
Yeah.
Because usually by the time you see spilling happening, you are in trouble because you probably haven't even seen the effects of the last meal or two you eat.
Right.
Those, like we said, that digestion time can take some time. So when you're seeing spilling over, you're probably seeing the meal several hours ago starting to have its effect, unless you've been drinking a lot of liquid carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So when you see that spilling, you're like, oh shit, we've got some more coming here.
Right. Yeah, I guess you're just kind of, but like you said, this isn't the first time you're going to peak somebody. So at least for a show, you're going to be well prepared for that not to happen.
Yeah. And for that reason also, I would say practice peak weeks are a great tool to utilize. I think that I think even what happens to people after a show day is important. So if you have 2 shows in a season and you've loaded somebody up pretty well and they look good on show day, and I've had this happen before, I load them up with a good amount of carbohydrates that I think they can handle and they look really good, but then they go out and they enjoy a free meal.
Yep.
As people tend to do after a show, they enjoy a free meal, and then they wake up the next morning and I'm like, you still didn't really spill.
Right.
I'm like, we can handle more next time.
Gotcha.
So that those are things to note when you're doing a peak week too. Is like, what do you look like the day after? Because if you look good the day after having a free meal, then you probably need to be loaded up a little bit more.
Yeah, because usually those meals are pretty aggressive, right? So that's good data.
Yeah. If you nailed someone's peak, and even with a rather, I don't want to say moderate free meal for how most people do their post-show meals.
Yeah.
And they should look a little spilled the next day if you do it right.
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Let's get into a little Q&A. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 or 12 questions that people submitted. So there was some stupid ones that I didn't pick. There's a few good ones that I did pick. So let's, first one is your thoughts on intra-workout supplements. So carbs, EAAs, stuff like that. Are you a fan? Are they more kind of BS than good? What are your kind of general thoughts?
No, I really do like intra training carbohydrates. I do use essential amino acids during training along with some sort of liquid carbohydrate. When I say that I like them, and this goes with almost all supplements or nutrient timing, I think that it helps, but it's not one of those things that's going to change the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess one of the things that's so funny is when I come out in favor of a certain thing like intra-workout carbohydrates, some people say, yeah, but it's not even going to make that much of a difference. And I'm like, honestly, besides for weight training itself and caloric intake, nothing's going to make that much of a difference. You know, like the biggest thing you're looking at is maybe like 1%. If I can do 10 things that'll make a 1% difference, then I'm going to be 10% better. So I do like them. You know, the funny thing though is I think the time when they are most useful is the time when people don't want to use them, which is when you're in a caloric deficit. Because, you know, usually when you're in a caloric deficit, people don't want to put 25 carbohydrates into their training. But I think that's the time when they're most useful because energy intake is at a higher premium. And even though we don't tend to use many carbohydrates at lower intensity levels, like walking around doing our daily business, we do use some. You know, anybody who's ever been in contest prep will tell you that if you are walking around all day when you are pretty depleted, you're going to feel really depleted after you've been walking around. So I would rather have people use those carbohydrates during their training rather than having them use those carbohydrates to do the dishes or mow the lawn, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. Cool. What is kind of the biggest determining factor for someone's initial macros and caloric intake at the start of a prep?
So, I mean, the biggest factor for me is actually twofold. Sorry, I'm going to correct that. Threefold. One, what have they been consuming already? Number two, what direction are we going? Are we trying to gain weight or lose weight right now? And three, what's our timetable like to get to where we're trying to go? So those three factors really come together. For those that don't know, I actually wrote a bodybuilding book. Last year we released it with I did it with Dr. Peter Fitchen. And we were talking about, when we were putting this book together, we were talking about how to set maintenance, or how to set caloric intake when starting a diet. And, you know, it's kind of funny. We both looked at each other and we knew the same exact thing. We were thinking is just calculate what you're eating right now. And then, then let's go a little bit.
Adjust accordingly.
Yes. Because there are so many maintenance calorie calculators out there. None of them have been proven to be terribly accurate when dealing with individual to individual. So, you're much better off just starting with where you're at now and then reducing or adding one way or the other. So then the other factor is which way are we going and how fast are we trying to get there? When it comes to gaining, personally, I try to gain very, very slowly to avoid unnecessary fat gain. Because muscle growth, as we said, is a slow process. You generally don't need a huge caloric surplus to create growth. When it comes to cutting, once again, it depends on how far we have to go. So if I have a client that needs to lose 80 pounds, I'm pushing it. I'm not going to be going for 1 pound a week. Because I'm going to have them dieting for almost a couple of years at that point. So I may take their current, I say, what have you been eating? Here's their current caloric intake. And I may even reduce 1,000 calories depending on what they've been doing, because we're trying to push it out of the gate. But once again, that's for someone that's, probably 50 plus pounds over show weight. And usually I'm going to say, I'm not even going to get that all in one shot personally. If I'm going 50 plus pounds, I'm probably going to do 25 quickly, pause, bring food up, and then do the last 25 slowly.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of some of my factors. I wish I could give people an exact, ratio that I use, but for the most part, I'm going to find out. I ask when people go to my website and they ask me, or when they go to my website and on the application form, some of the most important pieces I have on there are what was your what's your weight at your last show? If you haven't done a show, then I'll tell by looking at their pictures. And what is your current diet? Like those let me know like where we're starting, and then I start working off of that.
Cool. Right on. Next question. As a natural athlete, they kind of worded this weird, but I'll try to generalize it. As a natural athlete, is there really a big benefit in getting 20, 30, 40 pounds over stage weight?
As a natural athlete, no, I don't really believe so. Well, let me say, did they say 20?
Yeah, 20 seemed low. So
Okay.
let's call it. I would agree. Like 20 seems low. I'm 20 over
Okay.
stage weight right now, and I feel fine. But yeah, so say someone's like 30, 40, like they're doing like a bulk. Is that
Gotcha.
as a natural useful really at all?
Well, so I think that I apologize for all the vague answers, but it's like so over the years I've really tried to stay away from absolutes. So I guess I would say when I'm looking at somebody's ideal off-season weight, first I say that it's not really a hard number; it's a range that I'm
Sure.
looking for. And the first thing that you're going to realize is that everybody has a different ideal um, weight range. There is some science to show that there's a sort of a set point theory for everybody's body fat percentage. And you can't say that somebody being 40 pounds over stage weight is an inappropriate weight for them, because what is actually interesting is that every single one of us has a different number of body fat cells in our body. So mine may be different than yours, and yours may be different than the next guy. I think we've all seen those people that they eat and eat and eat, and they just never seem to gain much weight.
Right.
And those people may have a low number of body fat cells, whereas we've also seen, those those types of people would probably never be able to be obese. At least if they were going to become obese, they would almost take effort on their part. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They'd have to work
And
towards it.
And then meanwhile, exactly. So there's a couple of different factors with that. So yeah, for the most part, the number of body fat cells that we have is rather set. The body can create body fat cells, new body fat cells, to be filled in instances of overfeeding and overeating and force feeding and things like that. So that's not to say that someone who's naturally thinner can't become obese, but it would almost take work. So sorry, I'm going off on this long tangent, but I promise it comes back full circle. So, but it's important to note because our how empty or full our body fat cells are is going to be a huge driver of our hunger levels, how much we're craving, how comfortable we feel, and our hormone levels. So someone that is naturally lean, they may eat fewer calories and feel less inclined to eat tons of calories because they have fewer body fat cells to fill up. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Whereas, if somebody has, let's just throw out a couple of numbers. If somebody has 8 billion body fat cells, it takes a lot fewer calories. And when those body fat cells are at a comfortable fill stage, do you know what I mean? Their body will not keep driving them to keep eating. Whereas somebody that has 30 billion body fat cells on their body, it's going to take a lot longer to get their body to what it deems as a comfortable fill level.
Right.
So that's why it's super important to realize that, while one person may be able to hold a weight body fat level, the next person really might need to get to 40.
Right.
So when I say that, now with all that said, so then you need to start looking for, where does my body feel comfortable? And usually there's a weight range. So what I say with this weight range is that it starts at where you feel comfortable. And when I say comfortable, not just in terms of how you feel. So when I say you feel comfortable, you should not feel hungry for most of the time. Now, hunger and craving are a little bit different things.
Yeah.
We all want to eat a pizza sometimes. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
for sure.
But for the most part, you shouldn't be hungry. You shouldn't feel deprived. And then you should also feel pretty good about the way that you look. And so the way that you look you're gonna have to also take into consideration psychological factors. So you are going to have to be happy with the way you look, but also be realistic.
Yeah.
And then the top end of that weight range is going to be there you go. Top end of the weight range is going to be when you start not liking the way that you look, and you start to feel, if you've ever gotten too heavy, and you start to feel a little sluggish, a
Yeah.
little meh.
Yeah.
So you got to work within that range. I usually think that somewhere like a 10 to 15 pound weight range is pretty reasonable, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So for myself, like I'm going to use myself as an example. My show weight is usually somewhere around 167 pounds on stage. My comfortable off-season weight is usually somewhere around 188 to 200 pounds. So, I'm looking at my top end, 200 pounds, I'm 33 pounds over stage weight there.
Yep.
But I've had other clients where they work best in up to 40 or so over stage weight. So I would say find that range and then work in it.
Cool. Right on. Do you think there's any merit to isolation work for smaller muscle groups such as traps, forearms, and calves? Is there much real reason to put volume to those smaller guys?
So if we're talking about bodybuilders, generally I don't train forearms ever, just because forearms are one of the things that really are going to grow as every other muscle group grows, because they naturally get some overload. The only time I would recommend it is if somebody has unbelievably small, lacking muscularity forearms to where that they start to stick out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Calves, I do think calves need to be trained. Now, when I say that I think calves need to be trained, I think a lot of guys put too much emphasis on their calves. The research shows that calves do not have the growth potential of other muscle groups. I believe one time I read a study that showed that calves only have about 30% of the growth capacity that
really?
quadriceps do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shit.
So, I guess once again, I would say only put a lot of effort into calves if they are really, really small. Because for the most part, and I'm going to say this particularly for natural bodybuilding, for the most part, it's going to come down to something else before it comes down to calves. I have never once heard a judge in my entire career say that somebody lost because of their calves.
If it was only for their calves, they would have won.
Yeah, it's going to be, this guy was leaner, this guy had better overall shape, his back was bigger, you know what I mean? It's going to usually come down to something else long before it comes down to calves.
Right.
Now traps, I do think you should be trained, because I think traps have quite a bit of growth potential. I think traps also show in every single pose that you do.
I agree.
They show from the front, they show from the side, they show from the back. So I think traps should be trained like any other muscle group. But we'll see. Some guys are really adamant about their calves, so we'll see. We'll see how many complaints I get over that comment.
What about direct ab work? Do you have much, opinion on that?
Yeah, I do like direct ab work. But once again, how much depends on the person. Like, some people just have great abs naturally, in which case I don't think they need a ton of direct ab work. Maybe a few sets a few times a week and you're good.
Yeah.
Some people that don't have great abdominal development, then we're hitting it pretty hard and heavy.
Gotcha.
So I think that I think abs and traps really need to be trained like any other muscle group, and sort of tailored towards your individual strengths and weaknesses. So if you're weak in those areas, then you've really got to pump up the volume in those areas. If you're strong in those areas, then you can I don't want to say coast, but you can sort of back off on the volume a little bit, maybe hit a few sets very intensely, but don't maybe go to failure.
Yep.
So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Post and pre-workout macro distribution.
So I think that's now. Are you talking pre and post workout? Are you talking about pre-workout meal, post-workout meal, or are you talking more in terms of like a post-workout shake or anything like that?
I think they're probably more so like a meal. What's kind of the recommended breakdown, I guess, for those meals?
Gotcha. So if we're talking pre-workout, I think it's going to differ depending on if you're training first thing in the morning or not. So if somebody's waking up and they're training pretty much first thing in the morning, then generally I'm going to recommend a bigger meal before they go to sleep.
Yep.
So they're not depleted by the time they wake up. And then when they wake up, I recommend something like a whey protein and Gatorade, or whey protein and maybe some sort of faster digesting cereal.
Okay.
Just because it goes down fast, it doesn't take a lot of preparation,
Yeah,
things like that.
for sure.
But if we are talking, I say get that in, then they're pretty much off to go train. But if we're talking like middle of the day type of training, I usually want to see my clients eating anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours before they train. A good amount of protein, depending on how much they're taking in through the day. A good amount of carbohydrates and not a ton of fats.
Yep.
Because fats, can slow down your digestion. They can make you feel a little bit sluggish. So I would say moderate fats,
Sure.
Depending on what they have to work with in their diet. And then they go train. Post-training, I do like to have my clients get a protein shake. Oddly enough, protein shakes have become a little bit of a controversial thing.
Yeah, people hate them now, eh? Like it was, I mean, when I was first getting in the gym, it was like I was in the shower drinking a shake. Like you had 30 minutes or it was game over. But yeah, now people just shit on protein shakes.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think it's like you said, within 30 minutes. I don't think it's like as dire as everybody once thought it was. Like it was when I first started training. It was like I had my protein shake at 40 minutes post workout. I might as well just throw the whole session away.
Yeah, 100%.
But protein shakes are one of those things that can possibly give you an advantage, and for certain are not going to cause any harm.
Yeah.
And whenever there's several of those situations in bodybuilding where something is definitely not going to cause any harm and it can possibly give it an advantage, I'm usually taking it.
100%.
So a protein shake, typically for most people, depending on their size, I'm going to recommend anywhere from 20 to 40 grams in their protein shake. And then probably if they're having their protein shake, maybe an hour to 2 hours after that, having like a meal. And then you can put some, if you've had your whey protein shake afterwards, then you can have like a little bit higher fats than what you had for your pre-workout. So then protein, carbs, and fats at that meal.
Cool.
Now, I don't think that post-training carbohydrates are as important as a lot of people make them out to be.
Okay.
Because if you're having that protein shake, whey protein is pretty insulinogenic. And so you're going to get a pretty good insulin spike just from taking some whey protein, which will halt catabolic processes pretty swiftly. And I think, in your post-training meal, you can get some carbohydrates in there. But I don't think it's as important because one of the biggest factors for post-training carbohydrates is glycogen replenishment.
Yeah.
And we really only need to do that before our next training session, which isn't coming until the next day.
24 hours at least. Yeah.
And so I tend to kind of leave post-training carbs for my clients as a little bit of a, if you like them, keep them. If not, I don't think it's terribly important.
Interesting. Cool. What's the determining factor in when to introduce diet breaks during a prep?
Diet breaks. So diet breaks have become really popular lately, and I'm going to say I don't dislike them. So I'm going to say that I think they are very useful. But before I go in on how I like to use them, I'm going to say I think the biggest trend I'm seeing right now with diet breaks is people diet breaking when they don't have time to diet break. So sometimes I'll have people send me a question and they'll show me their picture and they'll say, I'm 10 weeks out right now or 8 weeks out or whatever. And they'll say, here's what I'm looking like. I was thinking about doing a diet break right now and then doing these macros going into the show. And I'm like, you have zero time to diet break. You are, you're already maybe even behind.
Yeah.
So I think the diet breaks are useful, but I think the current trend is overrating them a little bit, because a lot of the research does show, yes, you will increase your metabolic rate after the diet break if it's substantial enough, but it's very, very short lived. The diet break is generally, with anything, refeeds, diet breaks, you're never really you can't cheat the game. You know what I mean? Like, the way I describe it is, if you really were able to prevent metabolic slowing to any degree, or you know what I mean, it would work against evolution. Yeah. So I'm gonna say, like, I'm gonna put this in the form of a diet break. Is if I were on the brink of starvation, and I find this big meal and I consume it, and it speeds up my metabolism to such a degree that it would actually aid in me starving to death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Our species wouldn't survive.
No.
So from a physiological standpoint, I don't think they're terribly useful, but I think they are extremely useful from a psychological standpoint. And the way I like to use diet breaks is, we all have that point in prep where we start to feel really shitty. You know what I mean? Like, we all know that point.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hits the same time every time. I think for most people, it's around maybe 10 to 15 pounds away from show weight. And so what I like to do is, if I have time to do it, I will diet someone right to the brink of feeling that shitty feeling. And I will give them a break of maybe 2-3 weeks even.
Wow.
So I let them catch their breath.
Yep.
I let them catch their breath before we embark on the really hard stuff.
Sure.
Now, not a lot of people are patient enough to start that early. But if I can do it, I will do it. I'll diet them right to the point, and they'll communicate with me when they'll say, "Hey, I'm starting to feel really crappy, right now."
Yeah.
And I say, "All right, we're going to pause it. We'll put on hold. 2 to 3 weeks maybe." And they can, feel good a little bit, get sort of a psychological break, and then we're going to go back and finish it.
Gotcha. Cool. They wrote cheat meals ? Useful ? When to implement ? That was the question.
I like refeed, but not cheat meals.
Okay.
Now, I'll say this. That's not to say that I never use cheat meals for clients, but they have to be the right person. Some people aren't. I wouldn't say aren't equipped to handle the responsibility of a cheat meal.
They could be abused.
Yes, because a cheat meal by itself isn't something that's measured, and so there's a certain freedom that comes with that. I fully acknowledge, but one thing that can be problematic with regular cheat meals is that as you are bringing weekly calories down, the cheat meal calories continue to rise.
Yeah,
it's like you're offsetting everything you're doing in your week. So for the most part, I like refeed days. Measured, counted refeed days, with maybe a free meal here and there if I think someone's responsible enough to handle it. The funny thing is, the ones that are usually asking for the free meals are the ones that are probably not ready for it.
Yep.
The ones I usually give the free meals to are the ones that don't even usually ask for them, because I know they can handle it. You know what I mean?
Yep. Cool. Right on. Is there any must-have vitamins or mineral supplements you recommend on, even just in general, whether it's prep or off-season, just in bodybuilding in general? Is there any vitamin minerals that you say are like probably a good idea?
Vitamin D, right off the top of my head. I would actually recommend to a lot of people getting their vitamin D levels checked. I think it's a good idea to just get a checkup and find out where a lot of your vitamin and mineral counts are at. Sure. And most people are deficient in vitamin D.
Yeah.
And there are so many wide-ranging effects of low vitamin D levels, from reduced testosterone, reduced strength, reduced immune function. So vitamin D, I would say right off the bat is a good one to start off with. Maybe start off with somewhere around 2,000 IU's per day, even up to 5,000 IU's per day, depending on how low you are, because most people are low. And so I would say vitamin D. I also think a lot of people could probably check into their magnesium levels.
Okay.
Magnesium is one that tends to be a little bit low. Even if you take a multivitamin, like just a standard, multivitamin, a lot of multivitamins don't have much magnesium. So, I like vitamin D and magnesium to start. And but from there, I think that a standard multivitamin will cover most of anything that you'd really need.
Sure.
I don't think that many people need these mega doses that some people are taking.
Yeah.
Vitamin D is probably the only one that I would say we need to go above the recommended daily allowance, because so many people are deficient. And it makes sense too, because we obtain vitamin D from the sun primarily.
Yep.
And, human beings as animals, we are animals at our core, where we we evolved mostly to live outside, and now we spend like 90% of our time indoors away from the sun. So it makes sense that we're low.
For sure. What about like a fish oil? Is there room for an omega-3 or anything like that?
I do like fish oil. So actually, the reason I held off on fish oil though is because when I say I like fish oil, I like fish oil, but only really, really high grade fish oils.
Okay.
And I don't think most people are willing to spend the money on it.
Right.
So a lot of the research shows that the fish oils that you're mostly going to pick up at the store are spoiled already.
Really?
I think a study that I read showed that something like 96% of fish oils on the market are already rancid and spoiled because they're not stored properly in terms of heat and light and things like that. And then they'll actually do more harm than good.
Shit.
So I would check for something that's labeled pharmaceutical grade fish oils. Pharmaceutical grade fish oils, they're not going to be cheap. Like the one I take, I think is like $44 for a bottle of fish oil. And, it's not like one of those massive tubs. It's probably like a 90 capsule.
Gotcha.
So I would say fish oil is great. But if you were not going to go with like a real high end one, I would skip it.
What about magnesium on dosage? You didn't mention that.
I can't remember the one that I haven't taken. I want to say somewhere around so I'll put it this way. I like the lower dosages.
Okay.
I like anywhere from 100 to 200 milligrams, because I like the lower dosages because it allows me to sort of tailor it towards my diet. And I do the same thing with the vitamin D actually. So like if I get a lot of sun, I will take less for that day. So I do the same thing with the magnesium. If I'm eating some foods that have a little bit more magnesium, then I'll reduce it. But I would start with less on the magnesium, and then just kind of see how it goes from there.
Gotcha. Awesome. How do you manage the mentality of competitors, and then they put in brackets expectations or setbacks, for example?
So it's funny because I do think that a big part of my job as a coach is to manage expectations. And it's gonna be coming out not anytime terribly soon. I'm in the process of writing a book on this whole subject, to be honest with you.
Sweet.
I'm like 80 pages in, and I still have a ways to go.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a lot of research that shows that confidence levels are very, very closely tied to goals that we set and the expectations that we have for ourselves.
Right.
And, we're constantly told, shoot for the stars, aim for the stars, believe in yourself. But research actually shows doing that destroys people. In fact, people that have the lowest confidence levels are the ones that continually aim the highest. And the ones that set more realistic goals for their abilities are the ones that see their confidence build over time rather than get destroyed over time. So I usually try to start my clients off with their goals that are more immediate and like sort of, I don't even want to hear talk of these really, really long-term goals, to be honest with you. Because one, it's not terribly useful for these really, really lofty goals.
Yep.
And two, by the time you get there, you may even want something entirely different.
Sure.
A great example of what I would say is Amazon started off as a book retailer. If Amazon had said,
we're going to sell everything.
If Amazon had said, we're just going to become the #1 book retailer in the world, they were really narrow-minded, singularly focused. They're not going to look at anything else. They wouldn't have become what they are today. So it can also hold you back because you might be capable of more than what you realize if you set this really narrow, singular goal. So I would say focus on maximizing those small goals that you have immediately in front of you, and then set the next goal and go towards it. So that's kind of how I manage my clients' expectations from there.
Awesome. Cool. And if a client, I don't know, say it's a show, maybe they don't place where they want, they're super bummed out, like how does that conversation go?
In that point, it's got to be perspective.
Yeah.
I personally, I'm always a realist with clients. I try to provide realistic perspective and realistic criticism. And so oftentimes the realistic situation we are in isn't as bad as what we feel. So, a lot of times if they didn't win their show, then, hey, you were close, or, you have a long career ahead of you.
Yeah.
This one show is not going to make or break your career. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And then from other things, if they didn't really work as hard as they could have,
be honest.
Something along the lines of, I'll even say, hey, you did pretty well. You may not have won, but you did pretty well. And let's be honest, you had a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
straight up.
So if you would next time, if you improve these things that we didn't do, then we should be able to get it next time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, so that's why I say like honest criticism, because oftentimes the truth is that our situations are very much within our control, and we just need to realize that.
For sure. Cool. Last one. How to, I guess, balance out a physique for bodybuilding, and then they put in brackets XFrame. So if someone's like, say they're 3 or 4 years into training, the newbie gains are all gone, and they're like, okay, I want to be a bodybuilder. I need to do bodybuilder things now. And this is the look. Is there certain things that you kind of say, okay, these are muscle groups that need more attention. These are exercises that we should probably do. Do you have any, I guess, set in stone rules for that stuff?
No, and here's what this thing that they're probably going to hate to hear is for the most part, that XFrame is genetic.
Yep.
Some people really have it. Some people don't. If you have it, and then when you train, it's going to be even more pronounced. If you don't have it, then what you're probably going to end up with is what I would say you can control it by getting more of a freaky muscular look. And I'm going to use 2 natural world champions that I've worked with in my career. Doug Miller is one. Doug Miller doesn't have that typical XFrame.
Yeah, he's pretty blocky. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a little bit of a wider waist, but he is freaky muscular.
He's jacked.
And every muscle group pops. The other bodybuilder that I've worked with is Valentine Azuga. Valentine Azuga is much more low key, so a lot of your the listeners may not know who he is. But I coached him when he won the World Championships in 2016. And if you're not familiar with him, Google him. He's not a very big bodybuilder, but just has this freaky shape. So everyone who stands next to him looks like they have an ugly physique. And so,
how do you spell his last name, real quick? I'm gonna write it down.
It's Ezughha.
HA. Okay, cool.
Yeah, Valentine Azuga. And so I guess I would say is don't worry about shaping your body so much, but more focus on developing each muscle group to its fullest capacity.
Yep.
If you do that, then you're going to be pretty happy with what you have at the end. And then, of course, give a little bit more love to those lagging muscle groups. And then, and if you do that, then you'll be happy with what you have. I'm going to even also use myself as an example. Is I don't have a really big physique and not even a really pretty physique.
Except the triceps.
A lot of you,
Except your triceps.
Yeah, and over time though, like I've realized that I do have things that make my physique really unique and attention grabbing, like my triceps. Or I also have a really I have a real graininess to my muscle tissue that a lot of people don't have. And I guess I would say train yourself really, really hard, but don't try to get other people's highlights, their physique highlights. Train to your fullest capacity, and then you're going to realize what your highlights are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think like you hit it on the head at the beginning too, and you can't change your skeleton is something that I like tell people too. Like I have a friend of mine. I have a friend of mine who's got like he's lean, but he's got like a 33-inch waist because his hips are just so wide. Whereas when I diet down, my waist is like 27, and he's like, "How does that happen?" I'm like, "That's just my bones, dude. I can't. That's nothing neither one of us can change." So you're right. Like there's only so much you can do about that. But for him, it's just building the muscle groups and making that look small, but making other areas bigger.
Yeah, and so I just think oftentimes, and it's easier said than done when you have a lot more experience. When you're new, it's like I want to look like this guy or that guy, but I would say, be flexible with the physique you envision for yourself in the future.
Yeah. I think, that's a good way of putting it. Cause when I was a kid, it was Arnold, you know what I mean? I wanted Arnold's physique, and that's changed dramatically. Cause I realized his legs weren't that great and he just had a really good chest. And you're like, okay, there's other things about bodybuilding that I'm after too.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that it just it changes with time, and your goals and your aspirations will adjust. I think that the people that are usually most successful have what I would say is a certain. I think it's the difference between purpose and goals. Goals are really specific. Purpose is a little bit more vague.
Mm-hmm.
And like a perfect example. Did you ever watch the show Shark Tank?
Oh, love that show.
Yeah, so a perfect example, Barbara Corcoran.
Yep.
Like she didn't even really set out with like so I like using examples of people like this. So she didn't set out to like say I was going to be this real estate mogul. She was dyslexic as a kid, and she said, I just wanted to show everybody that I'm not stupid. She goes, I'm smarter than everybody's giving me credit for.
Yep.
So, like her goals would vary over time. I'm gonna become this and do this, but it was with that larger purpose of showing people that she is capable. You know what I mean? She is capable of being successful and doing this. So the purpose is a little bit more vague. So I would say kind of have this purpose that you have, and then let your goals serve that purpose.
Awesome. Right on. Awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on.
No, I appreciate you having me, and I think I think we had some great questions here.
Yeah, no, I think I got a lot of value out of this, so I'm sure I'm sure some of the listeners will as well. So Cliff's Instagram and everything will be linked down below, so you can give him a follow, even though I'm sure you guys listening already are. And again, man, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks everybody for watching.